Okay, we should be up and running here. Both streams should be good to go now. All right, so we'll be going over the market, going over today's plays. We still got about 6.5 minutes, so we'll see where the market ends up closing here. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference for tomorrow's bias, but we'll check back at the end to see what the final closing price is for the Qs and SPY. Let's get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for October 7th, 2021. Qs up about 1%, pulling back here. SPY up about 0.84, and then IWM up 1.4. Coming into today, we were neutral on Qs and SPY. IWM as well, although IWM we never went bearish on to begin with because of the daily just being really sideways. So it's trendless, so it's hard to be bearish on something that's just going sideways. So we came in today, we shifted from the bearish bias to neutral this morning. We got this gap up, pretty decent sized gap up here on the Qs and SPY. It got a little bit of follow through, but is pulling back now. I'm going to maintain the neutral bias going into tomorrow. If you're looking for kind of the aggressive opportunity long, it would be over this hourly bar here, over 364.50 or so on the Qs to trigger a buy setup. That would be the earliest that I could be bullish on this. Okay, so if I wanted to turn bullish, but I'm going to hold off on that. And so the reason is the time frame conflict here. So if there was an area, a location for us to do a sell setup here on the Qs, it's a pretty good spot. We just don't really have the pattern in place. We don't have the sell setup in place. And that's because most of this move up is kind of just this bar and then a gap. So we have that conflict there. So the daily, we have a downtrending, and we have pointing down 20 MA, and then the hourly, it's pointing up. So we don't have time frame alignment here between the hourly and the daily. So for the Qs and the SPY, for the short term, just going to have to stay neutral here until one of those wins out. So if the daily sell setup wins out, what it'll probably look like is we base here for a bit, 20 MA catches up, and then starts to curl over price, and then we roll back over. We could even have a very bearish day tomorrow that could sell us back down into this just congestion, and then base from there. 20 MA would eventually flatten out and curl over as well. If we were to go back up higher than that buy setup that we're talking about, that would trigger over a previous hourly bar's high, we'd probably move up. We'd engage this 20 MA and then probably stay in this area or even move up a little bit above it, and then that'll cause the 20 MA to flatten out and then curl up underneath, and then we'd have kind of bullish alignment. Okay, so we're kind of in a wait and see, which is consistent with being neutral, right, on the Qs and SPY. All right, so let's go over the plays from today. Yesterday, I think I talked a lot about kind of quality over quantity, trying to make the plays count. This morning, I only had one play, was the YUMC, if it took out the high, and it never did. Okay, so then as we were getting close to lunch, someone asked, like, do you sometimes not take any plays? And I said, yeah, some days I don't have any plays. Because, especially during now, in between earnings season, we still have a couple of weeks here before things get started. And so I said, yeah, there are days like today so far. But we still have a lot of time left in the day, so that may not remain true. And so, interestingly enough, as we got into the afternoon, there were actually a lot of plays. So you might have played the PNW with me. This was called in the afternoon here. Actually, I think it triggered over lunch. Is that right? Yeah, triggered over lunch. We had a nice gap here on the PNW. So gapping underneath that green bar, clearing support. And then in the morning, it was kind of this sloppy grind back up. I didn't play it at the open or anything. I'm not sure there was an entry there. If there was, I didn't see it. And we got this grind higher, and then we started to transition back into a downtrend. Okay, so actually, in the same way that we talked about, okay, what if we get alignment again in the market? One time frame might be pointing up, another might be pointing down. What does it look like when the one that's pointing up starts to point down is now you get this basing here, 20 MA starts to curl over price. Okay, so this would be an example of how, things will transition from that grind higher in the morning into the downtrend in the afternoon. And so once that 20 MA is pointing lower, and we already have a week daily combined with the gap, right now we have time frame alignment on this thing. So it's not the kind of thing that would play long, that would keep me out of it, because it is a bearish gap and a bearish daily. So I have to wait until, it gives me an opportunity to short it. Now this did take a little bit of time to get going, so we kind of just stuck with it all afternoon, and then finally we got the follow through. First exit was once we took out the lows there at 68.80. Next piece came out around 60, and then the last piece came out a little bit above 50. So missed this little last bit here, this tail end of this drop. And it's because I just didn't really have any way to trail this, so the bars looked like this on the 15. We'll zoom in a little bit on that. Multiple bars down like that. And even if I decided to trail the 15, I would have got shaken out there. Normally I'd like to go hourly until the end, but the hourly bar, was already so big, we'd have to trail all the way back up to 69.09. So at the time it was at 50. And we played it with like a 30-cent stop. That's kind of a lot to give back, right? 50 all the way up to 09. That's like 60 cents on a 30-cent stop. So and there was no pivots really to work with either. I mean, on the smaller time frame, I ended up going with a little bit of a pivot right here. So that ended up being like the little pivot that I used off the 2-minute, and it coincided with 5-minute bar by bar. So it seemed like a good exit at first, but it had another leg down, and the market was also bouncing at this time. So like I said, I missed this last little leg down on that PNW, but it's fine. I think the play overall nice. Glad it worked, and after a really kind of slow, boring morning. Not that the morning, it didn't bother me. I didn't feel like I needed to rush into the afternoon. If today had been a day where there wasn't anything to do, that was fine. But that was the mentality, but then things showed up, so that was great. Sammy had a nice call on the GLNG as a breakout here, really nice. Even though the market came in the afternoon, nice relative strength, nice continuation there. And really the play of the day would have been this TPTX short. I just wasn't really that focused on it. I think it was because of the quality of the gap here. So many bars down. I did have this rated as a novice gap, so actually novice gaps you can play against the gap in the morning, and then you want to play in the direction of the gap in the afternoon. So I kind of ignored it because it was a novice gap. I wasn't really planning to fade the gap in the morning, but I also didn't come back to it to really focus on it to play short in the afternoon, which is just an amazing play. I haven't worked out numbers on it. It's going to make me feel bad once I figure out what the potential max on this would have been. Not that I know I wouldn't have caught the whole thing, but man, when you have a play like this, it's hard not to have anything short of a home run. So I'll work that out later, but yeah, that would have been the play of the day. And the nice climactic call from Sammy, called the climactic off the lows there over 43. I think 35 is either the 1-minute or the 2-minute, back up to the declining 20 MA. So I think it was about $1 stop, and worked for about $3, a little over $3. So really nice play. So I mean, you can see the kind of the same entry pattern there actually on the TPTX. So it started off strong in the morning, then it started to roll over. 20 MA on the 5 catches up, right, and then starts to push price down. It's like the same play that we did with the PNW, just didn't work nearly as well, but that's just how it is sometimes, right? So same kind of thing, transitioning back into a downtrend after a little bit of a bounce. And so that was the same entry on the TPTX, a little bit of a bounce there, actually a pretty significant bounce, but then transitions back into a downtrend. So same kind of entry, glad they work. So, today was good. I thought, PNW worked nicely. I think could have managed a little bit better, been a little bit more patient with this, but I think that's fine. I had a reason for wanting to kind of take the whole thing here at 68.50. And I think the other good thing from today was just not rushing, and even, with someone asking me like, where are the plays? Like, when are you going to call the plays? Are you just, not doing anything? Like, say, and just kind of being fine with that. If that turns out to be the case. Now, it's great. Like I said, that the afternoon things picked up and we had plays to call. And that there were a lot of activity, a lot of volatility, of course, things moving. But in the morning, it wasn't really that way. There were things moving, but I wasn't seeing a lot of nice trends, and even not a lot of nice setups either. Okay, and that's this kind of thing, being able to wait and wait until your play sets up. To me, that's a big part of being a professional trader, and not just being kind of a novice, because of course, when we start off and we trade, we want to trade and we want to do things on our time. But of course, the market doesn't care when we want to do things and does not, do things on our time. So sometimes it's like that today. So, and last week, I thought a lot of what we saw last week was there were things to do in the morning and then there's nothing to do in the afternoon. So, it's unfortunately just not up to us to say, well, today I want to have a busy morning and then take it easy in the afternoon. You just have to go with what the market gives you, right? Okay. All right. Hope you did well today. We had some pretty nice calls in the afternoon, especially. So hopefully you're able to take advantage. We'll be back at it tomorrow to close out the week. Have a good evening.